All right. Welcome. Welcome to Story Time with CJ. Today I'm going to give you guys a little bit more information about me, the person that I was, you know. Let's get right to it. I previously had a series out, still have a series out, where I talked about red flags that I ignored. I went through a situation that ultimately costed me a good paying job, and I blame everything on that individual, but I also take responsibility myself as well, you know. But to skip past that story, to kind of tell you where I am, where I left off. Quick recap. I met a person overseas. I was out of the Army. I was a contractor for the government. I met someone, and based on some decisions, we got involved, got fired from my job, all that stuff goes. I was in a total depression. I had a little bit of money, I had about $150,000. Like I said, I had about 80 liquid, 70 in investments. What I decided to do after losing my job overseas, a good job that I decided to get into the drug game, which that was a decision that took me from May of 2007 all the way to January of 2025. So let me just get right to it. I was in a depression. And one of the things I want to say to people out there watching is if you are in a depression, get some help. Talk to somebody. Hopefully someone has your back. Hopefully you can rely on someone. I might have had a support system, but at the time I was just on my own. You know what I mean? I was just trying to get what I could get. So anyway, I'm living in Texas at the time. I had some connections from being in the military, oddly enough. I started to, cop drugs, cocaine specifically, At that time in 2007, you could get a kilo of cocaine for 14,500, you know what I mean? And if you're smart, if you have a network, you could take that up to the New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area. You can make 26,000. You can buy, okay, let me back it up so I don't confuse anybody. So in Texas, back in 2007, let's just say you could get a kilo of cocaine for about $15,000. The same kilo of cocaine in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia at that time was around $26,000, okay? So my idea was I could get it cheaper in Texas. If I could get it to people that don't necessarily have motion or have money, they could probably take that brick, that 1,000 grams of cocaine, cut it in half, possibly use 500 for crack, which you could add chemicals and da-da-da. This isn't a drug education video at all. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to give you, the history of my mindset. I was thinking that, I could go up there, I could probably make 40, 50,000 off of a $15,000 investment that I made in Texas. Keep people paid, keep everything going. So anyway, I do that. I got a couple runs going or whatever. Again, I was overseas, I was a hero. I was this amazing contractor doing all this great work in Afghanistan, having a lot of success, taking care of a lot of people, and 6 months later, after my, firing, actually 3 months later after my firing, what happens? I'm in the streets again. I gotta carry a gun. I gotta live a certain type of lifestyle, Texas is no joke, I'll tell you that right now. It's different, you know what I mean? It's a different place, you know what I mean? Especially if you hustling, you know what I mean? I'm not glorifying that, I'm just telling my story. So anyway, I had made a couple runs, you know what I mean? The Northeast, Southeast, from Texas. This particular day, I just came back from North Carolina. I had a trunk full of stuff. Offloaded that, got paid, whatever, came back to Texas, and instead of me relaxing, chilling, I literally just got off the road 18 hours. There and back, so 36, 37 hours total. I was fatigued. I didn't have locks yet. I had like a low fade. Facial hair was growing out crazy. I remember looking at myself in the mirror because I got a call. I was gonna go back to Atlanta to, do some business or whatever. And I was like, cool, I'll go. So I was gonna go to Houston to get what I needed to get so I could scoot over to Atlanta. So everybody that knows Houston and know those highways, I-10, I-12, to go east from west to east. That was my, main, transportation route, as you could say. So anyway, it's crazy because I've made this run several times, but this particular day, I remember before I left my crib, I looked in the mirror, and this is crazy. I looked in the mirror, and I looked at myself, and I said, you need to shave. But you know what I told myself back? I told myself, don't worry about it. You don't need to shave because you're going to jail. Anybody with sense at that moment would have stopped and just chilled, right? But me at the time, nah, I had no chill. I was trying to keep going. I was trying to keep, doing what I was doing. And I was depressed. I was literally depressed. I was upset. I was unhappy. You know what I mean? I was going through it. You know what I mean? You go from being this quote unquote important person in theater. In theater, what I mean is being overseas in a combat area, doing all this cool stuff, to coming back to Texas, being this guy on the street. So anyway, back to my story. I look at myself in the mirror and I tell myself I'm gonna go to jail, so there's no reason to shave. The arrogance in that. The inability for me to pivot and say, you know what, man, nah, this is not right. Nah, I didn't do that. I had no chill. So what happens is, true to form, I go to Houston from where I lived in Texas, and I had a dispute with the essays that I was dealing with, the Mexicans that I was dealing with, respectfully. I had an issue with them. You know what I mean? I was trying to get a certain amount of dope, and they wouldn't give me but a half a kilo, which could have been my saving grace. I literally had the bread. I was trying to get 3. And again, understand, I'm not glorifying, I'm just telling my story. I was trying to get 3 to go to Atlanta, but all I could get was a half. I called Atlanta, I'm like, yo, I only could get this. Y'all could just, you know what I mean? And I still could make some decent money off of that. For me, it was worth the trip. I had nothing else going on in my life, you know what I mean? But that. So I get it, half a key. And I had a little hotel around the corner from where I copped it from. And anybody that knows anything about all of that, with transporting illegal contraband, you gotta wrap it a certain way. You know what I mean? Saran wrap, dryer sheets, pepper, Vaseline, etc. There's different ways you can wrap these things. But what happens is when you wrap these things, right, it makes the weight of the actual product heavier. Not the actual product, but if you get caught, you get charged for the TPW, which is the total package weight. So boom, I wrapped it up, and at this time, I'm a little arrogant. I've been running back and forth on these highways, you know what I'm saying? I'm an Army vet. At the time, I got all my stuff in the car that shows I was an Army vet. I had a rental car. As a matter of fact, I had a Ford Taurus, Texas plates, right? So boom, I leave Houston, I'm headed east, going to my destination, I'm living dangerously, living recklessly. I'm not worried about nothing. I've been stopped before, but I know how to rap and all that other stuff, so I've been able to get away. You know what I mean? I've been doing this successfully now for a couple months, made several runs back and forth, whatever, so, boom. I'm headed to Atlanta from Houston, all right? So anybody that knows that area, you're going east on I-10, I-10 turns into I-12, like Sedell, that Louisiana, Baton Rouge area, you know what I mean? Somehow I ended up on, I believe, Interstate 59. Anybody watch it, correct me in the comments. I think it's Interstate 59 that takes you from like Hattiesburg, Mississippi, up through Laurel, Mississippi, which can take you to Atlanta. You know what I mean? I just talked to my man on the phone. And he was telling me to go a different way. But I was like, nah, this way gonna be faster. I'm good. So the ironic thing about this, Laurel, Mississippi, is the same location where that female, the one that I got the annulment with, that I got in all this trouble with, she lives in the same town. Ironically, had no plans on seeing her, none of that. You understand what I'm saying? I was literally going through litigation with her. You know what I mean? But somehow I end up in her town and I'm literally going down the highway. Yo, I'm doing 54 and a 55 miles per hour. I'm driving, right? Thinking I'm cool. Now I'm dressed a little casual. You know what I mean? Part of my disguise was, you know, I wear like a shirt and tie, some slacks. I wasn't looking like, you know, like a b-boy. I wasn't looking like this out on the roads. I was looking like a professional, all right? I'm in my Ford Taurus, you know what I mean? I got the Army memorabilia and stuff in the window, so people, even though it's a rental, I try to make it look like I'm, you know what I mean? So anyway, respect to the Army. I wasn't trying to disrespect anybody watching that feeling that way. Look, man, I gave my life for that, and this is what I did, so whatever. Anyway, so I'm driving down this highway, and I passed to my right a canine officer. You know, I seen them. They had like a Ford Explorer. You know what I mean? Canine unit. Boom. So I'm riding by. I'm not speeding. I look over. I keep going. I'm keeping it smooth. Like I said, I've done this a few times. So I'm driving. This dude immediately, he follows me for like a mile and a half. You know what I mean? But it felt like 10 miles, honestly. You know how it feels. You got work in the vehicle and you got a cop behind you. You know what I mean? So boom. This dude comes from behind me, comes up on my side, and I'm driving. And now I'm a little nervous, I ain't gonna lie. You know, I'm paranoid, you know what I mean? Now I'm probably doing like 50 in the 55. This dude see me, this cop, look at me. I'm looking at him, he on my left side, I'm looking at him, he looking at me. He backs off. And I keep driving because this particular part of the highway that I was in, it was a straight stretch, you know what I mean? So boom. The dude comes out of nowhere, fast, woo, lights, everything, pulls me over. Yo, the dude comes on the passenger side of the door, and the cops are very smart. Yo, if you want to hustle and you think you know something about the law, you better do your research. Watching music videos and listening to your homies, that is not going to keep you out of trouble. Really don't do it at all, you know what I mean? But if you're going to do it, know the law, be smart about what the interactions with a police officer may be. So boom. The cop comes, roll the bundle down. He asked me my name and asked me where I was headed. I said, yo, I'm headed to Atlanta. He said, for what? I said, I'm going to visit my sick grandmother, which I don't have a sick grandmother in Atlanta, you know, back in 2007. He's like, oh, okay. He said, okay, cool. He said, can I see your rental agreement? I said, yes, sir. Boom. Go in a glove box, like I'm gonna let you know I'm going in a glove box. You know, I don't have a weapon or nothing, you know, whatever. I'm going in a glove box and I'm gonna grab it real quick. Boom. Give it to him. He's reading it. Now, one of my things was, I'm not one of them guys back there to be hanging out. You know what I mean? Whatever I was gonna do, I was gonna do it. I'm not trying to be in a club. I'm not trying to do none of that. I'm about to roll. I had a 2-day rental agreement. I was gonna travel a day to take it. And from where I lived to get to Atlanta at that time was a 12-hour drive. Right, which is nothing for me. So boom, I will go there and then come right back. You know what I mean? I might not even get a hotel, especially in the area where I just did my exchange. I'm not trying to be around that. I'm not trying to get robbed or have no issues. I wanted to stay pretty much incognito. You know what I mean? So boom, he's looking at the rental and the dude is like, so you going to Atlanta to see your sick grandmother with a 2-day rental? And I was like, yeah, you know. He said, why you all dressed up? I said, oh, I just left work. And he asked me where I worked, and I told him a little bit what I was doing, that it sounded good, whatever. He was like, okay, cool. He said, you know something? I got a feeling that you've got drugs in the car. I said, drugs? You know, when you, like a little kid, you know, when they do something wrong and you tell them, and they're like, oh, no, I didn't. I looked like that probably. I wasn't cool. I was under pressure. By the way, this is months of us doing this, you know what I mean? I got a little cocky, I got a little overconfident. You know what I mean? But I really didn't perfect my whole pitch back and forth with the police. You know what I mean? And I'm like, nah, I ain't got nothing. He's like, well, today's your lucky day. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, in the state of Mississippi, you have the choice to refuse a search. So it's your choice. If you don't want me to search your vehicle, I'm not going to search it. And I'm like, all right, cool. I don't want you to search my vehicle. Now, only somebody possibly guilty would say that. What I could have said possibly is like, well, if you get a warrant, I have no problem showing you everything, blah, 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 blah. But he knew that I was hiding something based on how I answered that question. I was like, no, I don't want you to search my vehicle. He says, okay, hey, it's your right. I can't search your vehicle without your consent, but I want to just let my dog run around the vehicle. So anybody that's been in one of these search and seizure type situations, you know when the canines come out, all right? They put them at the rear of the vehicle, they run on the side, and they'll, if nothing's there, they'll just kind of go up. They go to the front, they go up, they go to the side. Anywhere that they don't see anything, they kind of just chill. Otherwise, if they get an alert for something, they're going to bark or try to get to that area, pretty aggressively. So because I had it wrapped so well, I know for a fact. And by the way, I had this brick in the bottom of a duffel bag. You dig? It was a tall duffel bag, probably about 3 feet tall at the very bottom. And I had it wrapped with all type of stuff that nobody could smell, nothing, right? So the dog runs around again, nothing. The cop's like, oh, I got a hit. I'm like, no, what hit what? I'm tripping. Because I'm knowing I done been in Tennessee about a month before, same thing happened, and they let me go when the dog didn't smell nothing. So I was confident in my rapping skills, you know what I mean? Not rapper like, hip hop, I'm talking about rapping anyway. So anyway, he's like, we got a hit, da 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 da. I'm like, what? He's like, stay in your vehicle. Dude puts the dog away, gets me out the car, puts me in handcuffs, places me in front of his vehicle behind the vehicle that I was driving. Yo, tell me why this cop went right to it. I didn't have it hidden in a compartment. I didn't have a trap space, none of that. I literally had a duffel bag and a small backpack where I had a bunch of cash, you know what I mean? Like an outfit probably, you know what I'm saying? Some simple stuff, but I probably had, a good amount of cash, whatever. So anyway, I'm handcuffed by the vehicle. I see this dude grab my duffel bag and he empties it out. And he's like on the ground, like pushing, trying to feel something. And I'm like, this nigga here, boy, he like a head detective. Like, this nigga, like, he know his shit, right? So boom. He's like, I knew it, I got something. Yo, he finds the brick, whatever. He brings it back to me. He walks up to me calmly, says, hey, listen, if you're headed somewhere, I can let you continue your route. Just let us know where you're going, who the major players are, this, that, and the other. See, I'm not one of them guys. You know what I mean? We'll talk about snitching and all that garbage later. But at this moment, this is my job, this is my enterprise, this is my organization that I'm running. I have no one to tell. I'm not gonna take you, I'm in Mississippi now, I'm about to go to Atlanta and meet these guys that ended up being some suckers, not even really being my friends anyway. But anyway, I protected them, whatever. And again, I had this sense of arrogance. Even though I'm dressed up like business casual, I got this gold bangle that I purchased, about $20,000. It had my nickname, Jack, J-A-C-K. My last name, Jackson, Jack in diamonds. Had this huge bangle on. I got on a nice size chain. I'm kind of stupid, to be honest with you. Like, I'm trying to act like I'm some casual business guy, but I got jewelry on that, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing something probably, you know what I mean? It didn't fit what I was trying to tell the cops, whatever. Anyway, he trying to talk to him like, nah, just go ahead and take me, man. I said, I'm just tired. And literally, when I got arrested, I felt relieved a little bit. Understand what I'm saying? 2005 to 2007, I was in Afghanistan in a combat zone, right? Doing a job that is dangerous. 2 years later, right after all of that, I didn't get a chance to download that information, get counseling, get help, none of that, nah. I went from being in a combat zone, after being in the army, going to Iraq and all of that, I go from doing all of that to being caught with drugs. And let me tell you something, I felt relief. which sounds crazy. But yo, they take me to a precinct that they had. And let me tell you guys something. Y'all out there doing this illegal stuff, y'all be careful, man. Or don't even do it. They got people that got nothing else to do but solve crimes. Nothing else to do. Why you think you outsmarting the law and doing all of this dumb shit? They got people just on the highways now with drones and all type of technology looking for people that are looking to commit crimes, and they're looking to stop them. So they take me to this project. I'm in like Jackson, Mississippi. They got like a low income housing unit. It looks like a projects. It ain't like New York, like the huge big buildings. But it's like, you know what I mean, like a project. You know what I mean? You can tell. So you can't tell. And I pull up. They pull up with me. There's Chargers out there. They got a couple of BMWs. They got like a Range out there. They got a couple nice vehicles. They walk me in, and I'm like, where are these dudes taking me? You know what I mean? I don't even think I'm going to jail. Honestly, I think they want to figure out what I'm doing. Yo, when I go in there, inside these projects, they got a whole office. They got a whole tactical operations center. You understand what I'm saying? They got computers, they got maps, they got detectives, they got dudes walking around with dreads, dudes with braids, bald heads, tatted up. These dudes don't look like cops, but they cops. They got badges on. They got like a whole unit working out of this housing projects. So it hit me like, oh snap, you know. And the cop comes up to me, says, man, he says, you'd be surprised how many guys we get from Texas. I said, what you mean? He said, people think because this is a small town that we're not paying attention to stuff, but we're waiting for you guys. It felt that big. Okay, so the place they booked me, I stayed there for a night, you know what I mean? Then they moved me out to Jones County. Anybody from Mississippi watching this, they know Jones County. I think that's Jackson also. They took me to that jail county jail. So when I get there, based on the amount of cash that I had and based on the actual drugs plus the total package weight. So mind you, I had a half a kilo, which is 500 grams. The way that I packaged it and packed it, I had another 270 grams. So the total package weight that I had was 770 grams. All right, boom. I had some cash, I had this and that, you know, whatever. All right, cool. Not cool, but you know, that's how I talk. So anyway, I go to this jail, Jones County, and I'm an ACO, which is an attorney contact only. Yo, I had no contact with anybody on the outside. No mother, I ain't had no daddy anyway. You know what I mean? Friends, family, loved ones, girlfriend, whatever. I have no contact with no one, right? I'm sitting there for like 3 days, like 72 hours. I'm bugging out. The anxiety was through the roof. And at that moment, I realized, oh shit, I made a huge mistake. I realized it at that moment that I made a mistake. I realized that, yo, I messed up. So anyway, boom, I'm tripping. I'm in this cell by myself, right? I don't have a bunk. I have a freaking mattress and I'm on the ground. I would have to move the mattress to use the bathroom to pee. You know what I mean? Like, it was a crazy setup and they were really crowded in this facility that I was in. So they have the, what are those dudes called? The trustees coming through with the food, and they got people's in there saying they walk in the halls, you know, walk in the corridors. Charles Jackson from Texas. Ooh wee. That's what these boys are saying. I'm in Mississippi. I'm like, dang. Charles Jackson from Texas. Ooh wee. That's what they saying, right? So boom.